Canada is going to extend its euthanasia operation to the mentally ill. Now, they've already tried to do that. It didn't work yet, but that's where it's headed. So my sense, now I've already seen one case report of this, but my sense is that this is what's going to happen, is that they'll extend MAID, medically assisted death. It's the Canadian Euthanasia program. They're going to extend that to the mentally ill and to minors. And so what we're going to get is a death romanticism of MAID suicide among young women. And it'll eclipse the trans contagion, I think. And I think it'll happen for exactly the reason that you just described, is we'll get romantic accounts of early suicide among attention-seeking, desperate young women who are also tempted. You know this too, because if someone does have a pronounced depressive temperament, one of the temptations that's going to befall them is the belief that everyone else around them would be better off if they weren't there.
Yes,
and so you can see how that can take on a...
That's the number one reason for suicide, right? They're a burden. They believe they're a burden.
Right. Exactly. And that can easily be romanticized, especially if you also want to avoid the responsibility of growing up, right? Because that's another, well, that's why there are suicidal crises among adolescents, is because, they are deciding whether they're going to take on the burden of responsibility of adulthood and the opportunity and adventure of adulthood as well.
Well, how do they answer?
It's easy to romanticize the, go ahead.
How do they answer this question? How does that individual, if they have a mental illness to this level that they want to die, how does that person give informed consent if they're incapacitated to the point with a mental illness that they want to die? How do they give informed consent?
Oh, yeah. You and your logic. Look, man, how does a 13-year-old give consent for a double mastectomy? We're already way past that. We've blown out the necessity for informed consent long ago, and that'll provide absolutely no barrier whatsoever to the people who are pushing the MAID agenda in Canada. Like Dr. Phil, that question won't. There'll be endless academic papers written by demented ethicists providing an answer in the affirmative, which will be something like, well, they still have sufficient capacity to decide whether their lived experience indicates that their suffering is such that it would be better if they didn't exist, and you have no right to interfere with that. That's how it'll be justified.